Islam is debated from two sides, those who defend it and those who oppose it. But what if both misunderstand Islam? Let's uncover why.
In the modern era, Islam is often viewed from two opposing extremes. For some, Islam is seen as outdated, rigid, and unable to keep pace with the times, sometimes even labeled as intolerant. For others, Islam is understood as a path of liberation, freeing human beings from the grip of worldly desires and guiding life toward God as its ultimate purpose. These two perspectives continue to develop their arguments, evolving alongside time and changing circumstances. Yet, when we honestly observe today's reality, there is one fact that is difficult to deny. Muslims as a civilization have fallen behind in many areas: scientific development, technology, innovation, and overall civilizational progress. Religious discourse often sounds like an invitation to revive social patterns from the past, patterns that, in many respects, no longer fully resonate with the challenges of the present age. And yet, the very modern civilization that is celebrated by critics of Islam has produced its own crisis. It has given rise to emptiness, to nihilism, and ultimately to a deep pessimism about life, where reality is reduced to material existence and death is seen as the absolute end of everything. So the question is not merely whether Islam is relevant or not. The real question is this: is the problem Islam itself, or the way we have come to understand it?
The fundamental question is this: how can revelation remain meaningfully connected to humanity in every era, when conditions of life, challenges, and ways of thinking continuously change, so that faith does not become mere nostalgia, but actively engages with the challenges of the time, while guiding humanity toward safety and clarity? Throughout history, every era has been marked by a dominant form of knowledge, one that shapes how people think, live, and build their civilization. In the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the dominant intellectual strength was literature and culture. Arab society was deeply rooted in oral tradition, poetry, and symbolism. In this context, literary expression functioned as an interface, a means through which people were able to grasp the meaning of divine revelation. Classical Muslim scholars were fully aware of this. Al-Ghazali, for instance, emphasized that revelation speaks to human understanding through multiple layers of meaning, and that reducing it to a single literal level risks obscuring its deeper purpose. In later centuries, as the influence of Greek philosophy spread across the Muslim world, philosophy became the defining intellectual framework of the age. It then served as an interface for understanding Islam, giving rise to monumental works by thinkers such as Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, and Ibn Rushd, who integrated reason and revelation without diminishing either. In the modern era, however, the dominant intellectual force shaping human life is science and technology. Our understanding of reality, truth, and progress is largely filtered through scientific reasoning and empirical evidence. From the philosophy of science, Thomas Kuhn demonstrated that human understanding advances through changing paradigms when old frameworks are no longer sufficient to explain new realities. Likewise, Paul Ricoeur argued that symbols must be continually reinterpreted as human consciousness evolves. In this light, it becomes clear that science and technology must function today as auxiliary disciplines, as an interface for engaging with revelation without stripping it of its essence. Through such an approach, revelation can recover its urgency, not as a relic of the past, but as living guidance, capable of illuminating human existence and shaping civilization in the modern world. Unfortunately,
the way we understand revelation often fails to keep pace with the development of available interfaces, that is, the modes or mediums of understanding meant to connect the divine message with the reality of our time. Instead of adapting to the contemporary framework of thought, we continue to rely on older approaches that are heavily dependent on symbolic and metaphorical language, which tends to be abstract. This is where the core problem emerges. This lack of synchronization leads to misunderstanding on both sides, among believers and among those who approach Islam critically. When the new bodies of knowledge that form the foundation of modern civilization are not employed as interfaces for understanding revelation, and we continue to depend on older auxiliary disciplines, religious life loses its connection with lived reality. Faith no longer functions as guidance for life, but becomes an exercise in nostalgia, even an attempt to reconstruct the past, something that is both historically and practically impossible. On the other hand, much of the criticism directed at Islam also misses the mark. What is often being criticized is not Islam itself, but the misinterpretation of Islam by some of its adherents. As a result, both sides become trapped in the same misunderstanding, starting from flawed assumptions, even while standing on opposing positions. In other words, as thinkers such as Ibn Khaldun and Paul Ricoeur have reminded us, the problem does not lie in revelation itself, but in the way human beings read it when historical contexts and modes of thought have changed. As long as the interface of understanding is not renewed, misunderstanding will continue to repeat itself on both sides of the divide.
So what should we do today, both as believers and as critics? The first step is to acknowledge and draw from the richness of our intellectual heritage, one that made use of literature, culture, and philosophy as interfaces or auxiliary disciplines for understanding revelation. The second step is to continue that journey by incorporating what earlier generations did not have: science and technology, along with the empirical facts that are accessible to us today. Through this continuation, we can practice Islam in a way that is aligned with our time, connected to lived reality, and capable of contributing meaningfully to the advancement of global civilization. And this is precisely the purpose of this channel. This channel is dedicated to uncovering the deeper meanings behind the symbolic language of revelation, with the help of modern science and contemporary logic as interpretive interfaces. The goal is not to alter revelation, but to understand it more concretely, to set aside what is non-essential, and to free ourselves from inherited conflicts of the past. An effort to continue, not to repeat. To understand, not to divide.